Hello. Today I want to talk about how to speak to people when you can't actually speak to them in human form. Sometimes there's things we want to say to people. We want to discuss certain things, maybe have a point of view with them, but we know they're not really in a space where they can listen to us and they're going to block us or not listen, or it could cause problems in our relationship because sometimes it's just a sensitive subject. There is a spiritual practice that you can use where you actually speak to them telepathically. And then what happens is, if you just keep talking to them, eventually it sort of downloads into their normal human life and they will actually get the information. And then sometimes it comes up, but sometimes it just resolves. I've done this with people that I couldn't speak to. The subject was difficult. I didn't quite know how to say it. I didn't want to have an argument with somebody because it wasn't really worth it. So the way I did it is that I see the person I want to speak to. Now, you can either speak out loud in your bedroom or wherever you are to the person and actually say it, or you can just telepathically speak to them and tell them how you're feeling about something, how it affected you, what you would like to happen, maybe some sort of grievances, I suppose, but more or less some of the difficulties that you're both experiencing in the relationship, and you just speak to them. Now, on a higher level, they will actually get that message that you sent to them telepathically because you are already linked to these people. They're often people that we love, people we care about, be in our families, work, friends. And when people can't hear us in the human world, they can sometimes hear us in the spiritual world. Our soul is quite different to our human. Our human has all its control issues and being right, and humans can get bogged down in the detail. Our soul is coming from another space. It's much more, vision is wider, the understanding is greater. There is more love in our soul normally. Sometimes we can have humans that are very loving as well. I'm not saying they aren't, but the soul comes from a more loving space. And so when we speak almost soul to soul, there's also less judgment and more tolerance within it. I noticed when I did these little talks to the people I wanted to talk to, it took a while, but then I did notice a shift in our relationship. And then if the subject had to be brought up, it became a little bit more nutshell because I'd said all the stuff I wanted to say. They've heard what I said. And then when we spoke about it, it was usually shorter and more quickly resolved. People hurt us, people do things that upset us and make us angry too. And I'm sure that it goes the other way, that we've hurt them and upset them. And they're not bad things that you bring up in your little telepathic talk, that you can show contrition and also kindness and ask for forgiveness that maybe you didn't do that very well or you could have done that better, because we could always probably do many things better than we do. But you can actually bring that up when you have your little talk with them. I feel it's really important to talk to them about how much you love and care about them and the relationship, and that you're doing it in this way because you don't want to threaten or mess up or destroy the relationship. If you are estranged from the person, you can still talk to them. And that means in the human world down here on earth, but also if they have passed, you can still talk to them. So you can have these telepathic high self talks to your father who's passed, or your husband who's dead, or a friend, and you can still know that they will get the information and the talk that you did to them, because it's like radio waves or microwave waves. It's going in another space and dimension. It's not just your physical voice. It's a very powerful exercise to do. It can resolve a lot of things. It can also help when you pass, and also help for someone on the other side to move on. Because if you are speaking to them and you forgive them, if there's forgiveness to be given, or you ask for forgiveness too, then that can release both of you from the tie, and they can move on to either the next life or their learning, and then you move on having completed that. So when you pass, you don't have to do any work or karma with them. It has a great power talking like this. When I first did it, I wasn't sure what to say, so I didn't make any rules about it. I just spoke in my head, and once or twice I spoke aloud. And ended up being in the shower having this conversation with my imaginary friend. But it was actually good because I got to say how I felt without any censorship. If I was angry or upset or hurt, I could say it. Anything that I wanted to say was all authentic and true, and it made for a very clean communication. A few times I really realised that it worked in terms of the human part, because something would be said to me from that person. I knew that they'd got it, or the way they brought up a subject and were willing to talk about it in a certain way also showed me that it was getting in there, like I'd actually managed to talk to them really clearly about something. If you do this quite a lot, you'll get very skilled at it and it'll be quite quick. It also stops some of the perhaps embarrassment or uncomfortableness about certain subjects. Some subjects in families and with our friends and that can be difficult to bring up or broach. We're not sure how we'll respond. We're not sure how they'll respond. So in this way, even though it seems one way, they do get it and it will download and they will hear it, but they're not forced to sit in the same room with the elephant in the room, as they call it, because the elephant in the room is discussed. I've used it many times when it's been, I've been unable to speak to the person. I could have done it, but it probably wasn't, my gut feeling wasn't going to be, it was going to be a good outcome. Whereas doing it this way is a bit safe, there's more safety in it. And really what we're trying to do is mend something, fix something, apologise, make it better. So intention is actually good. So you're working on that high level. I also send them love and healing at the end of the little talk that I've done. And if I have to go back a few times and talk some more, I do that because I think, well, there's more to say in a non-threatening environment. This practice works very good when you're dealing with controllers, because they will often try and take control of the situation and the conversation. Some people like to stonewall you, they'll shut you down, they will ignore you, neglect you, or get argumentative. So it can be difficult to do. A wonderful insight to me as well that when all communication in a human form is not valid or you can't do it, that there was another form I could use. I found it to be uplifting to feel that I could speak to them still, maybe make some peace with them as well. And you'll find it especially good with the people who've passed. Maybe there were things you didn't get to say, things that were never discussed that you are hanging around with you. So now you can actually talk to them about these things. So all in all, it's a very positive experience. Once you get the hang of doing it, it's very quick. You don't need any special tools or anything. You just need the focus. I just see them in front of me. That's my quickest way. You might have another way to do it. The verbal communication is very important with us. It's our way to express ourselves from our throat and from our heart. Sometimes situations and structures that have been set up within families or friends mean that we can't really talk to them anymore about certain subjects or even talk to them. So this makes it a really good way to talk to people. It's also very good to work with people who are introverted or reserved, who don't speak to you about things, but you know there's something wrong. And then you really actually give them, not counsel, but you give them some loving support by saying, hey, I notice you're not your same self, and I think you're depressed and I'm a bit worried about you. But you don't say it out loud to them because they would deny it, of course. But then you speak to them, and then maybe later, next time you actually physically see them, it's a little bit easier with you. It's one of the most loving ways to speak to somebody. You might not say things that are completely loving. If you're upset or hurt, you might say you're angry or you were upset. But that's just, in a sense, that's being loving, because when we love people, we should be able to tell them the truth. And this is the other thing, that it's the one time you really get to speak your truth. And you can't always do that in every situation or with every person. It's not always a workable situation that you can do that. And if you're with people who put up walls or shut you down, you'll never get to do it. So have fun with this one. It's kind of cool, but it's also very healing, actually. I feel it's a very healing modality to use. And it gives sort of resolution now and closure to some things. And I think when we have that energetically, then we can move on. Particularly if some of the situations the person is either not in our life or they've died, then it's much harder to fix it up. But this way, you just talk to them and it gets fixed. And then you know if you pass or they pass before you, it was completed, particularly from your side. And that's the other thing. It doesn't really have to be completed from theirs. It's great if it could be, but if it isn't, you've still done your part. And then when you cross, that's less work to do. Because we can do a lot of work here, and that saves us having to do the work when we cross. It's a time of messiness in the world, but don't let it affect you too much. Try and focus on all the good things and all the beautiful the world has to offer. Love and light to you.